Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we're talking about discovering your purpose. And before we went on the break, we talked about 2 steps you can take to discover your purpose. You want to go over those 2 steps real quick?
Yeah, I think it's first, you deciding what it is you're currently doing, and is it something that gives you joy, passion, fulfillment? And if it doesn't, then you might want to be open to the possibility that it's not what you were meant to do. It's not the reason why you were born. It's not, something that you're supposed to be fulfilling. It's not the purpose of your existence. And so if it's not, then, decide you're going to start that journey and start looking for reasons to exist. Looking for reasons to figure out how you can take your gift and give it away. Normally, when you're talking about purpose, like I said in the earlier segment, it has to do with some kind of contribution, some kind of making a difference, making the world a better place, helping people out. Normally, 90% of the time, it's usually some kind of capacity like that.
Yeah, I was going to say there's probably a few people out there, and they're not wrong, that their purpose probably isn't in contribution to others or their community. It's might be self-based or family-based, and I don't necessarily think that's wrong, but I do agree that my purpose would have to do with some type of contribution.
And the only reason why I say that is because from my experience of working, especially with financially successful people, if I asked them what was your purpose in this journey, a lot of times their responses was to make a lot of money, to be rich. And I was like, okay, but for what? Is it to be rich to help an organization, or is it to give it away? And it's like, no, it's for me. and then it's like, okay, well, what kind of work do you want to do? And they're like, well, I want to find my purpose. I want to live a life of passion, purpose, meaning. And so it really contradicts what they say they want. Right. So a lot of times the money was just about them. It wasn't really about being a contribution. It was just about acquiring more, and it was more about me, rather than, great, now that I've got this, now I can actually give it away, or it can be some kind of a help. And some people, some of my financially successful clients, they get to that point after they were selfishly worrying about them and earning really hard and becoming rich. All of a sudden, everything that they tasted had no taste. Every food that they had was bland. It had no taste to it, and they realized there's got to be more. And then they go through that journey, and maybe that caused them to reach out to me to learn a new way of thinking, a new way of yearning for something that was more meaningful. And that's the journey that caused them to say, all right, now that I did that, I'm glad that I woke up and realized that I want to now make a bigger difference in the world.
I think a lot of people start off like that. They start off with, okay, I'm going to work until I have enough money to do insert whatever their passion is or whatever their purpose is, and you kind of just get caught up, and now 15 years go by and you're still trying to get there because you don't have enough money yet.
Right. And so now you're 80 years old and you're still trying to get to that certain place that you think you're supposed to be at so that you can start living a purposeful life. And then you take your last breath and realize, damn, time ran out. But what if you decided to do both? What if you decided to actually figure out what your purpose is and make a lot of money at it, and you're now abundantly compensated for the gift that you are in the world? You're basically deciding to do both. You can do both if you believe that it's possible. And some of that belief and sorting through some of those self-limiting beliefs is some of the work that I do with people, is helping them get clarity that they can.
Well, I think we kind of talk a lot about self-awareness, and that being the gate, I guess, to discovering yourself and consciousness and all that good stuff. And I think a little bit of self-awareness would probably go a long way when it comes to finding your purpose. Because if you're not 100% being authentic or true to yourself, you don't really know, or you're not really conscious or aware of who true self is and what it is you want.
It's funny, on one of the other shows that I'm a part of, the Getting Real with Riel Andrews, I brought up a segment. It was an audio piece from Lady Gaga, and we played that piece on the radio, and it was something that I ran across. I thought it was pretty amazing. It was actually a YouTube video, and it was her talking about her retiring. And she just was being honest with the press, and she started saying, I just decided that I didn't want to be a puppet anymore, basically. And I, decided that I don't want to sit there and take selfies with, 200 fans, or I don't want to go and do that show because now I'm just a money-making machine to you. And I've now realized I've lost all creativity in my music. And so she just realized that all that stuff seemed meaningless. Like there was a bigger purpose for her. And so she started having that awakening. And as I was watching the YouTube video, I started my knees started shaking, and I started, identifying my soul with her soul as two souls, realizing that there's something bigger than whatever unconscious game that she's been playing. And so it gave me hope that, even people in the industry, in a real big ego-driven industry, you can wake up and realize, I'm starting to lose myself, or who am I? And it was really refreshing to see that video because, and I know I make a joke about it. I made it a couple of different times. I said, now maybe the Kardashians have a chance to wake up and realize that there's a bigger purpose other than being dramatic on TV. But I really mean that. Like, what if we all realize that there's got to be more meaning to my existence, and what if I embarked on a journey to figure out what that is so that I can really truly be happy and fulfilled? That would be amazing.
I actually did see that YouTube video, and I remember kind of, I guess, identifying with her when she said something about selling perfumes. She's like, why am I selling perfumes? I make music. Like, I don't make fragrances, and I remember thinking, that's so us, that everybody does that. Like, maybe my passion, is making music, and I'm doing all kinds of other things, and I'm not doing anything music related at all anymore. And, like she said, her creativity is either shot because other people are doing it, or maybe I'm putting my energy into other things and not into my passion or music or whatever it is that, you're passionate about. You're putting it into other things. So for instance, let's say perfume is your real job. Like, you're putting it all into that and not into what you really wanted. And when she said that, I kind of had this little bit of awakening. So,
well, it's funny because when I got introduced or invited to the possibility of doing a radio show, I kind of thought about it for a little while, and I was like, I don't know if that's really the road I want to go down. Like, how does that fit into my purpose? And as I sat there and realized that I can actually make a bigger difference with more people, is when it clicked for me. Not all invitations to take on are in alignment with your purpose. You have to really be selective, and some of those can be distractions. And believe me, I've gotten into a lot of distractions. I've gotten and excited about certain things that I start and don't finish, and I realize, wow, that's just a distraction. But if you get excited about something that really is in alignment with your purpose, by all means, jump on it and get in on it wholeheartedly and run with it, because it's what gets you excited. It's in it's in alignment with your purpose because you're excited to do it, and you get out there and really just give it your all.
I like how you brought up also the distractions. It just kind of reminds me, like I said, of I guess a perfume line. Like, all those things are just distractions and taking you away, and you're putting your energy into. I'm just having an awakening right now where I'm just kind of trying to get it all out. But you're putting your energy into, or I'm putting my energy into a lot of things that aren't aligned with who I am or who I want to be or where I want to go. And I think that's hard, or it's difficult to realize that those things are just distractions. They're not things that I really want.
And you have to be courageous to be able to say something.
Yeah, and acknowledge that maybe the last 2 years of my life that I've been doing this was really just a distraction, which is hard because you don't necessarily, or I don't want to admit that almost.
But by you admitting it, it helps you get clarity so that you can recognize more distractions that are coming down the pipeline. Because you're going to be invited to be a part of a lot of things. Like, I invited you to be a part of this radio show, and for all I know, it could be one of your distractions. You could be something that you're not in alignment with, and you could just be doing it because you don't, want to let me down or whatever. And you might not have the courage to say, hey, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. But it would take a lot of courage for you to say that. And I know that, you wouldn't be hurting my feelings. You wouldn't be breaking my heart. I want you to figure out what it is that you want to do. Even if you're doing something that you don't want to do, sometimes that's what you need to be doing to have that wake up call to just go one day, just say, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And just like Lady Gaga, she got clear one day and just sat down and just got authentic and honest with herself. And sometimes we need that. We need to be doing things that we're not supposed to be doing so that we can realize I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Right. You have to get pushed to that point. I mean, for her, she was going to retire from music, retire from the thing that she loves. And I think that's what really set it off for her. So,
and certain things are going to run their course. Like you're going to all right, it sounds great for a little while. And then before you know it, you're like, yeah, is it okay if I change my mind? Of course it's, life is about you changing your mind. It doesn't mean because you say yes to one, invitation that now I got to give you my word. And I owe you my blood for life because I said I was going to do this. No, you're allowed to change your mind. In fact, I think it's courageous of those people that do decide, hey, you know what? I want to change my mind. Let's figure out how to clean up this agreement that we had so that we can create a win-win so that I can go on and do what it is that I really love doing. It doesn't mean that just because you decided to do one thing that you got to, you're committed to it for life. That's like you being on the Titanic and not realizing it's time to get off, get myself a lifeboat, and being committed to go, no, I'm going down with this. I started with the Titanic, I'm going down with it. And it's like, it's time sometimes to cash in your chips and go, hey, the tables got cold and I'm gonna cash in and walk away with a learning lesson and figure out, where to go to the next new idea or the new road that's supposed to lead me down to where I'm supposed to be at.
So I think we gone over 2 tips, right? So after I narrow it down, try all the things on my list and figure everything out, really what's left other than going out and doing
what's
it?
Next is, chasing your passion. So out of that list, you're going to find 2 or 3 things that you're really passionate about, and you're just going to keep going after those. Keep collecting more evidence to yourself that this is what you're supposed to be doing. And my motto is chase your passion and you'll discover your purpose. So find those 2 or 3 things that you're just really passionate about, and what happens is it leads you to one day going, this is it. And only you can decide that. Only you can just go, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be at. You're the only one deciding whether it's your purpose or not. And you get this like internal knowingness inside of you. It's like in your spirit that just like nods at you like, you got it. That's it. And so you can only get to that place by following the things that you really love doing. So my suggestion is figure out what it is that you love to do or you enjoy doing, or you get lost in the time and just go after those and chase those, even if it's on your off time. If you have to support yourself and you're like, Alex, I can't just quit my job. I got responsibilities. Great. But find the time somewhere in your off time to go do what you need to do. If it's Saturday, it's a couple hours after night, you're going after it, you're chasing it, and if it feels right, it feels like it's where you're supposed to be at, then keep fanning that flame until that flame becomes an inferno. When it becomes an inferno, a raging fire, at that moment is when you get the clarity that this is where I'm supposed to be and this is my purpose.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I'm kind of imagining a lot of, older adults who feel like maybe they, their time has passed or they're too old or, I
love that. I love that excuse. You can't teach old dog new tricks, or I'm already 1 foot in the grave. No, you're not, but you're not in the grave yet. You got a little bit of time to have some fun and enjoy yourself. And whether it's 2 years or 10 years, get out there. And, it's like when you get to a certain age, it's like, if I'm at the end of my lifeline and I got maybe another 10 or 15 years to live, I'd much rather live the most amazing last 10 or 15 years of my life that took over the last 80 years of my life than to just grind out a boring, dull existence. I mean, if you knew that you can wake up one day and live an extraordinary life, and all it took was some courage and some humbleness and willing to learn and willing to be open and to find that inner champion inside you, wouldn't you be willing to dig down deep and embark on a journey like that?
Right. It kind of reminds me of Hilary Swank in $1 Million Baby. She's like 32 years old and she wants to fight. And even when I started that movie, I was not on her side. I was like, this is
what?
Not.
I love that movie.
I love that movie too, but I was not on her side. I was like, fighting is hard. It takes a lot of work on your body. And to start at 32 years old, especially as a woman, I think I was like that. I mean, obviously I knew how the movie was going to play out, but I still.
But you didn't
used
see
to
her,
think
her
that-
hunger and her
Oh no, I did.
desire.
You know, I saw her.
She came alive. That it was like her spirit was alive when she was, you know, practicing and in the gym and just in the ring, and it was her purpose. That, you know, whether it was short lived or not, it was her purpose, and she had the courage to go after it.
Right, but not only that, in the beginning, it shows her, you know, dirt poor, spending her last money on a punching bag or a speed bag, and it's like crazy. She's like in the you know, the dirtiest apartment, smallest apartment. She pays with like quarters and change, you know, for her equipment, and it just. She just jumped right into it. No support, nobody, you know, the guy she wanted to coach her wouldn't even coach her, and all kinds of things. But that movie made me kind of realize that you're not too old to do anything really. And if you really, really, really want it, you'll get it, even if it means you're dirt poor and you pay with quarters.
You know, even if she didn't win the championship, even if she didn't become the best boxer in the world, just that ambition and that desire to want to be fulfilled in something, you know, just I think, and it was funny because she even enrolled the trainer into seeing something that was inside of her that he probably couldn't get. He couldn't reproduce that in any of his fighters. He was like, what is in you that's ticking so radically inside of you, that hunger and that desire, that you're relentless. That's what you got to be when you spot what is meaningful to you. You got to go after it with a vengeance, and you just got to have that mindset that in this lifetime, there's no way I'm not going to become that doctor, or I'm not going to become that attorney, or whatever it is that you know you're passionate about, or what your purpose is. You go in wholeheartedly, like I'm all in. You put your whole bankroll up.
And you know what's exciting too is even if she spent, you know, 10 years just fighting in small fights and
it would have been,
you know,
enough.
In basements, that would have been enough for her. She didn't need that championship. She was happy enough, and she was content, and she was whole enough with just doing what she was doing.
Well, she was discovering that she was a champion already. Even in that process, she was deciding that she was that champion. And to dig down deep and discover a new layer of champion for her was the fulfillment and the joy that really, you know, filled her soul. And it was, man, I was inspired by that movie. Just you bringing it up gets me all fired up.
I know, your legs shaking on my chairs. No, not only that is, like you had said earlier before the break, something like when you start getting the ball rolling and you get excited, all of a sudden things start coming to you, and you can start enrolling people.
Yeah, the universe actually supports you, and this was crazy for me. Is once I finally surrendered the one thing that I thought was going to bring me security, because I had all these distractions. I was doing other things that I thought had brought me security, and finally, I don't know who it was that just finally said, you know what? There's no security in nothing. Especially in today's world, you don't get no gold watch or no parachute retirement. Today, you know, companies are just letting you go with nothing, just not even a thank you, just or a goodbye party. It's just, here's your last check and you're done. So I realized if I might as well if there's no security, I might as well just be my own security. Well, I might as well be my own, you know, Rock of Gibraltar. I'm just gonna put everything and invest in myself. You're rolling your eyes because you're young and you don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
But I'm gonna be my own advocate. I'm going to invest in me. I get to be the security in whatever it is I'm doing. And so then, you know, with the grace of my wife that was willing, you know, bless my wife. She's like my rock. She looked at me, she goes, she's the one that said, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? Why are you holding on to this when you know that this is your passion? And I took that passion with her permission and her backing and her support. I decided this is my purpose, and I just got crystal clear about it. And that's the road I've been on ever since.
Sounds great. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we talked about discovering your purpose. And if you missed any of it or you want to hear it again, you can always find our podcast online. So we're going to go over a quick recap to find out what you missed. So today we talked about why was I born and what was I born to do.
You would be missing chasing your goals.
Discovering your purpose is a journey.
We talked about living a purpose-driven life.
We talked about how everyone's purpose looks different.
We talked about if you follow your passion, you will discover your purpose eventually.
And if you missed it, you definitely missed the stages of realizing your purpose.
We talked about it's not about the money, but it is about the money.
We talked about fear and insecurities holding you back from finding your purpose.
We talked about discovering your niche. What's your niche?
What if you decided to follow your purpose and make money doing it?
We talked about distractions. There are going to be a lot of distractions being thrown at you, and you got to learn how to sift through those. We also talked about chasing your passion, and eventually, like I said before, you will discover your purpose.
So if you missed it, definitely go online and check that out. But next week, we're going to be talking about how to deal with parental guilt trips. And that basically just means how to deal with your parents when they guilt trip you.
You're going to love this one because I'm sure you got a bunch of those. But what I want to say about, dealing with parental guilt trips is the guilt would be brought on by your interpretation as the teenager or as the child. You're the one that's deciding, that
to feel guilty.
Yeah, that like, I don't really know if parents consciously say, I'm going to just mess with my daughter or my son to give them a guilt trip. But, okay, now
I don't know. I'm not a parent, but I don't know.
I'm getting the two youngsters looking at me like, yeah, I think sometimes my parents do that. Hopefully you don't have parents that purposely do it. But I think that, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I really can't wait to get into this conversation and open up the possibilities of, as a parent perspective, how and what you would be saying that your kids would be feeling guilty.
Well, like you said, I don't think parents are doing it on purpose. I definitely think they're unconsciously doing it, not realizing that they're doing it. And it's also very hard to, I don't want to say correct your parents, but it's hard to express that to your parents that they might be wrong and get a positive response.
Well, what if you open up the possibility that they could be wrong and you surrender getting a positive response? What if you're unattached to what kind of response you got and you just felt like you needed to say what you say and give it your own? What if you decided you had your own voice and you wanted to say, well, I see it this way? What's wrong with that?
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, yeah, you could surrender it. But it's still going to happen again.
It probably will the rest of your life. Your parents love you, and they're going to want to, give you advice to whatever it is they think is the right version for you or the right road for you. But when you talk about having a guilt trip, like feeling guilty, I feel like there's a part of you that you would just be going along with it and saying yes, 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 just to appease them. And then later, feeling like you're guilty because you didn't probably stand up for yourself and say what you really felt.
Yeah, sounds great. I can't wait to talk about it next week. I have a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm going to bring my boxing gloves too.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jasmine Urbina, and my dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.